Rick, you sure they can hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you.
And you just need me to start talking and it'll all just work.
Start talking and it'll be fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good morning. Today we're looking at the Old Testament again. Daniel chapter 3 is a time when God's people are in exile in a country called Babylon. 4 young men were taken and forced to work in the palace for King Nebuchadnezzar. I think we'll stick to King Neb. It's much easier to say. So those 4 young people were Daniel and his 3 friends called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now one day the king decided to make a huge statue out of gold, massive. And when the music played, he said everyone should bow down and worship it, or else they'll get thrown in the furnace. And it happened, the music played, everyone bowed down, but 3 people didn't. These were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. King Neb got angry when he heard about this, and he summoned them. And they respectfully told him that they wouldn't apologize for not worshipping his statue, and that they would stay faithful to their God. This made King Neb even more angry. He ordered the furnace to be made 7 times hotter. He said, tie them up and throw them in. And the soldiers who threw them in actually died from the flames. So they're in the furnace, and the king decides to have a look how they're getting on. And he's amazed. He sees that they're walking around and that there are 4 of them. The 4th one looks like a son of the gods, he says. So he says, come out. He can't believe what he's seen. They're unharmed. Their hair hasn't burnt. Their clothes haven't burnt. They're able to walk still. And they don't even smell like they've been in a fire. So King Neb praises God. He says, God has sent his angel and saved his servants from the fire. I think he recognized that God is mightier than him, which he didn't think before. And he makes a new law. No one is to say anything bad against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or otherwise they'll get killed. In our family Zoom meeting on Thursday, Rachel reminded us that we should always obey God, even in times when other people don't do what God wants them to do. We should stand firm, and we should do what his word says. In fact, our obedience to God allows others to see God's power in our lives. I think in this passage we can also see how trustworthy God is. I don't think it was easy for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to disobey the king in front of all those people, risking death. But they knew they shouldn't bow down to anyone but the Lord their God. They were obeying the 10 Commandments. God told his people to live the way the Lord your God has commanded. They chose to obey God. I'm impressed by their faith. They literally stood up for God's truth. They weren't just rebels, not just seeing how far they could push it, and they didn't hate the king that much either. In fact, he'd actually been quite a good king to them, all in all. No, they had faith in God, and they knew it was more important to listen to God and to do his will, even when the king was telling them to bow down or else. They knew they might die, but they absolutely trusted him. Just like I had to trust Rick. At the beginning of this recording, I had to trust his expertise. I don't understand all those gadgets, but I knew that Rick had it all under control. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego took God at his word. In Psalm 56, verse 4, it says, I trust God, so I'm not afraid. What can human beings do to me? Wow, that's challenging for me. But God has the power to protect and save. He protected those 3 men in the furnace. In fact, he was with them in the fire. They weren't alone, and he saved them. He shows us and King Neb that he is powerful and trustworthy. Let's trust God in all our big and small issues this week. He is trustworthy, and he knows everything we're going through. Jesus says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. So we know that God is true to his word. We trust him for our salvation. So we can trust him for the little as well as the big things. Have a great week.